I'm pastor of St. Peter Claver, C-L-A-V-E-R, in St. Paul, and also of Sagrado Corazón de Jesús, S-A-G-R-A-D-O, Corazón, like Aquino, in Minneapolis, one an African-American parish and the other an Hispanic community in South Minneapolis. I'm here today, first of all, to represent the Roman Catholic bishops of the state, who proudly all signed their names over the weekend to a second letter to the legislature. The first went a little earlier last month to urge all the legislators to do exactly what they did, which was to support the emergency extension of GAMC. Over the weekend, the bishops also put their names to another letter to the House of Representatives, asking them to stay strong in their commitment to the kind of people we have the privilege of serving, all of us, and many of us being related to. And so I want to, first of all, to note, most importantly, that the bishops are united in asking the legislature to do this. They also proudly stood with the Joint Religious Legislative Coalition in seeking the same common voice for concern for brothers and sisters like those we've just heard. Permit me to add also a personal note. I had the first of probably 3 or 4 people just yesterday morning that I will see this week who are the kind of people who would be disadvantaged if the legislation does not sustain its presence in its emergency relief. I had a fellow come up to me between my 2 morning masses here in St. Paul who is relatively confused. At some point he's going to become quite stable in his life, but right now he's struggling simply to keep his daily life together. My house is one of the places he comes to day by day to receive assistance, direction, food, occasional shelter. He sleeps on the couch of a friend. That relationship is strained, of course, by his continued inability to get his feet under him. The availability of GAMC is critical to the very first steps of stabilizing this very intelligent but very confused man's life. I have no idea what we would do in my neighborhood, in St. Paul or in South Minneapolis, and we have the VA just a short bus trip away. What would happen in rural Minnesota is even harder to imagine. And so I speak both as a representative of the bishops and also as a pastor who lives in a community in which human beings like all those 3 we've had the privilege of hearing are living very often in couches and occasionally in my living room and in my basement. And I'd like to add my voice and the voice of my community to ask that the legislation be sustained, the governor's veto overridden. Thank you.
I'm a pastor at St. Matthew's Lutheran Church here in St. Paul, where we have members of our congregation affected or would be affected by the cut of general medical assistance. I'm also the president of the Isaiah organization, an organization of 90 congregations that works for social and racial equity and justice. But I'm also a nephew to a wonderful woman who is on general medical assistance. I called her a couple of weeks ago to ask her if she understood what was happening. And she did. And I said, what do you think? What do you think is your future? I just asked her what she had been told, and she said, all I can tell you is that I'm really afraid. I'm scared for what's going to happen to me. And she said, what do you think? And I said, I don't know. But I do know this, that 2 weeks ago there was a bipartisan force in the House in this state that voted to sustain general medical assistance, the most basic level of medical coverage for the poorest of the poor, people like my aunt, people like the folks Father McDonough are talking about, people like those who have shared their own story here today. Only 9 members voted against sustaining, and so today we are very hopeful that the same commitment to the most vulnerable people in our state will shine forth again today as that vote is taken. This has to happen. We have a social contract with one another that says we're going to create a place where entrepreneurship is possible, but we will not let the poorest of the poor fall through the cracks. This has to happen. This vote must take place, that general medical assistance is continued into the future, because we have folks like the ones you've heard today who have times when they fall through the cracks. I do have to say, I'm hopeful that the representatives in this building will make the right decision today, but I am also concerned. I'm concerned because they are feeling pressure. They're feeling pressure from a governor who has a speech to write that he wants to run around the country and give as he's being elected president, and I'm not so sure he cares so much anymore about Minnesota and about the people who are here. And I have actually a personal request of the governor. Governor, please, stop talking to us about God. The governor's going around saying God is in control. We elected you. We elected you to be taking decisions for this state that will help everyone in this state, things that will lift up the poorest in this state. Don't pass this off on God. That's no God we've ever heard of. And please stop lecturing us about God. It's offensive. You need to stop. The only God that we're aware of is the one who says, if you want to follow me, you will look out for the widows and the orphans, for the fatherless, for the poorest in the land. Please, stop talking to us about God. We can't take it. It's just offensive. For those in this building, we know that you can do the right thing. We know that it's possible to save this basic plank in the social contract that we have with one another. Please, do the right thing today. Thank you.
We're waiting for the vote, obviously, today from the House. And one of the most distressing things is when this bill, the very same bill, unchanged, came up for a vote 2 weeks ago, all but 9 Republicans in the Republican caucus voted for it.
A lot of politics has happened since then.
Well, it has, but mostly scare politics on the governor's side. Where I think he's scaring his own caucus into voting against this bill. The last time Republicans voted to override the governor, it was on the transportation bill. None of them were in office anymore.
I think we only have one override as long as he's been.
Yes, that's right. There's only been one.